Alicia had always admired her sister, Nina. She was strong, confident, and effortlessly kind. When Nina married Ethan, Alicia believed she had found someone just as reliable and loving. Ethan was charming, always knowing the right words to say. He made Nina happy, and that was enough for Alicia to trust him. But things had changed. It started subtly, small moments that didn't seem unusual at first. The way Ethan's eyes lingered on her for a second too long. The way he always seemed to be around when she was alone. Compliments that felt too personal. At first, Alicia convinced herself she was overthinking. He was her sister's husband. She was just being paranoid. Then one evening, while Nina was out, Alicia was in the kitchen when Ethan walked in. "You look different lately," he said casually. She turned, confused. "Different how?" He leaned against the counter, watching her too closely. "Grown up." The words sent a chill down her spine. She forced a smile, brushing it off. "Well, I am 18 now." Ethan smirked. "Yeah, 18. Something about the way he said it made her stomach twist. She made an excuse to leave the room, but the unease stayed with her long after. From that moment on, she became hyper-aware of his presence. She noticed the way he always found reasons to be near her, the way his gaze felt heavy even when she wasn't looking. She tried to shake it off, but deep down, she knew something wasn't right. She started avoiding him. If he entered a room, she left. If he spoke to her, she kept her responses short. But no matter how much distance she tried to put between them, he always found a way to close it. One afternoon, she was reading on the balcony when he appeared at the doorway. "Mind some company?" he asked. She kept her eyes on the book. "Just reading." He sat anyway. "You always have your guard up around me now," he said, watching her carefully. Her fingers tightened around the pages. "I don't." "You do." He tilted his head. "I make you uncomfortable?" She let out a nervous laugh. "You're my sister's husband, Ethan. There's nothing to feel uncomfortable about." He smiled, like he knew something she didn't. People spend their whole lives pretending they don't want what they want. Her heart pounded. This wasn't innocent anymore. There was no mistaking his words, the way he said them. She stood abruptly. "I should check on Nina." She walked away without looking back. The next few days, Alicia felt like she was being watched. Whenever she turned a corner, Ethan seemed to be there. Whenever she laughed at something, he was always listening. Nina remained oblivious, busy with work and the baby, trusting her husband without question. Then one evening, as Alicia walked past the hallway mirror, she caught sight of Ethan at the end of the corridor, just watching her. Their eyes met, and he didn't look away. She finally snapped. "What do you want from me?" He took a slow step closer. "Honesty." Alicia's breath hitched. "About what?" "You feel it too," he said softly. "I see it in your eyes." Her stomach turned. "You're wrong." Ethan sighed, like he was disappointed. "Maybe I am," he said, but there was something in his voice, something that told her he didn't believe it. Alicia felt sick. She turned and walked away, her hands shaking. She had to tell Nina. She had to get out of this house before things went too far. But before she could take another step, Ethan's voice stopped her. "You'll regret ignoring this." She didn't turn back. She just kept walking, trying to ignore the way her whole world felt like it was starting to crack. Alicia couldn't sleep. Ethan's words echoed in her mind, twisting into something dark and unsettling. She had spent weeks trying to ignore the signs, pretending that if she didn't acknowledge them, they would disappear. But they hadn't. And now, she felt trapped in a house that no longer felt safe. The next morning, she avoided him completely. She stayed in her room, skipped meals, and only came out when she knew Nina was around. But Ethan wasn't the type to let things go. By the afternoon, he found her in the study, pretending to be busy with her notes. "You can't avoid me forever," he said, leaning against the doorway. She didn't look up. "I'm just studying." He took a step inside. "Alicia, I don't want things to be weird between us." She clenched her jaw. "Then stop making them weird." He exhaled, like he was disappointed in her reaction. "You're acting like I'm the villain here." She finally met his gaze, anger rising in her chest. Aren't you? He laughed quietly. Is it so wrong to want something you can't have? Her stomach twisted. Yes, when it destroys the people who trust you. He didn't flinch. You think Nina really sees me anymore? You think she cares? Alicia felt a rush of disgust. She loves you. Ethan sighed. Love and attention aren't the same thing. She shook her head, standing up. You're sick. Before she could walk past him, he caught her wrist, not tightly, but enough to make her freeze. You can hate me all you want, he said quietly, but don't lie to yourself. I know you've felt something too. She yanked her arm away, her heart pounding. You don't know anything about me. Ethan watched her for a long moment before stepping back, letting her go. Maybe not. But I know how this ends. She didn't stay to hear anything else. She ran to her room, locking the door behind her. Her hands were shaking, her breath uneven. This was it. She had let things go too far. She should have told Nina the moment she noticed something was off. She reached for her phone, her fingers hovering over Nina's contact. But what would she even say? That her husband had been crossing lines? That he thought Alicia wanted this too? Would Nina even believe her? Tears pricked her eyes. This wasn't fair. She hadn't asked for this. She hadn't done anything wrong. A knock on the door made her jump. Alicia? Nina. Alicia wiped her face quickly. Yeah. Dinner's ready. A long pause. Then, are you okay? Alicia hesitated, staring at the locked door. No more silence. No more pretending. She took a deep breath. Actually, I need to talk to you. Nina sat across from Alicia, confusion etched on her face. What is it? Alicia swallowed hard. She had played this conversation in her mind 100 times, but now that it was happening, the words felt impossible. It's about Ethan. Nina frowned. What about him? Alicia hesitated. He's been saying things. Doing things that don't feel right. For a second, Nina just stared at her, like she couldn't process the words. What are you talking about? Alicia's throat tightened. He watches me. Follows me. Says things that make me uncomfortable. I tried to ignore it, but it's getting worse. Nina let out a breathless laugh, shaking her head. No, that doesn't make sense. Alicia felt her heart drop. I'm not making this up. Nina's expression hardened. You must have misunderstood. He wouldn't. Nina. Alicia leaned forward, her voice desperate. He told me you don't pay attention to him. He made it sound like that justified. She broke off, the words tasting bitter. Nina's lips parted slightly, her face unreadable. He said that. Alicia nodded. For a long time, Nina didn't say anything. Then she stood up abruptly and walked out of the room. Alicia's stomach churned. Did she believe her? Would she even do anything about it? Minutes passed. Then an hour. The house was too quiet. Finally, she heard voices, low, tense. She crept toward the living room, heart pounding. Nina and Ethan stood facing each other, his posture stiff, hers trembling with quiet anger. Tell me the truth, Nina demanded. Ethan ran a hand through his hair. She's twisting things. Alicia felt a wave of rage. Even now, he was trying to manipulate the situation. Nina's voice wavered. You made her feel unsafe in our home. Ethan scoffed. She wanted attention. Nina slapped him. The sound echoed through the house. Get out. Her voice was low, dangerous. Ethan's face darkened. You're really gonna throw me away because of her? Nina's hands trembled, but she held her ground. I'm throwing you away because you broke my trust. Alicia exhaled shakily as Ethan stormed past her, slamming the door behind him. Silence filled the house. Then Nina turned, her eyes red, her expression crumbling. Alicia expected anger, blame, but instead, Nina pulled her into a tight embrace. I'm sorry, Nina whispered. Alicia closed her eyes, relief and exhaustion crashing over her. Me too. For the first time in weeks, she felt safe.